Hello, thanks for tuning in. This is Dr. B. Let's get to it. So today's title may be a bit misleading because we all already know how to make mistakes. Some big, some with big regrets. But each day we're likely to go through the day making some decisions that we ought not make. This is the one common factor among all of us: mistakes. So, what we want to do today is we want to review how we make those mistakes, and then, of course, look at how we can avoid them in the future. Thousands of decisions are made each day by each of us, and what we want to do is to look at the various choices that we have when we're facing a decision and make the best one available. One other thing most of us have in common is we don't enjoy making mistakes, and we certainly would like to avoid them. So, with that, let's look at what we do and what we wish we didn't. First off, making decisions too quickly without taking into account various options, the consequences that might occur. We might say some of us tend to act rather impulsively and then afterwards look at the results and the consequences. That old ready, shoot, aim sort of philosophy. So that gets a lot of us into trouble. So we want to stay away from that. Another thing that is the opposite end is a lot of times we take too long making a decision. We already have the information. We've added up what's logical, what's not, what the consequences are going to be. But for fear of making a mistake or not pleasing other people, or for whatever other reason comes into play, we essentially decide to decide by not deciding. Another mistake a lot of people make is they make their decisions to please other people. And unfortunately, that will often happen without taking into account what is right, what is moral, what is ethical, or what the big picture is and what is going to minimize negative effects in the future. Another mistake that so many make is making decisions while in an emotional state, especially anger, so that, again, it's not really looked at from a standpoint of logic. When emotion walks through the door, emotion tends to jump out the window. Our brains don't function in such a way that we can both be logical and emotional at the same time. So, generally speaking, making a decision based on emotion or an emotional state gets us into trouble. Another pitfall that's often fallen into is making decisions alone. Not seeking counsel from those we trust, for those of us that are more spiritual, seeking divine guidance, if you will. But collecting information, getting opinions from those around us that we assume are looking out for our best interests. We need to do that, and when we don't, we tend to fall into trouble. Another issue is reacting rather than responding, and this is kind of a combination of acting too quickly and operating out of emotion. Um, the knee-jerk reaction sort of situation. Not taking into account other options or long-term consequences. Again, it can be rather impulsive. Another problem that we can run into is operating out of fear for one reason or another. We let our decision being made out of fear. Now, there are dangers out there that we do need to take into account. What, of course, the problem is with fear is fear can hold us back from tremendous opportunities. People that have been tremendously successful have often failed, many, many times before they actually succeeded. But they didn't let their fear of failure nor the fear of what was blocking their way stop them from what their dream was. So fear can be a real problem. Now let's look at how to make some good decisions. What do we need to do to make good decisions? First of all, we need to recognize what we were just talking about and oppose that process. Oppose those things that get in the way. Oppose our own patterns, our own history that have gotten us into trouble. And part of that is being honest with ourselves and just recognizing that that happens and that I am prone to do that. And if I'm not careful, I'll do it again. The one common denominator when things go wrong repeatedly is me. I'm the one that's always there in that situation, dealing with whatever it is I'm dealing with. Another thing that helps me make good decisions is to be informed. I need to collect information. I need to be talking to others. I need to look at what choices I'm facing in a cold, rational way. I also need to assess my own motives. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is this for the good, for the greater good? Is it selfish? Is it simply about me and what I want? Am I not considering others, as I make these decisions? I need to be honest in that area too, because there are, I believe, moral and ethical issues that we need to deal with as we make choices. When it comes to seeking others' counsel, give other people permission to speak. A lot of times we don't want to hear certain things, so we'll shut people down before they have an opportunity to really be honest with us. And I'm talking not about the casual friend. I'm talking about folks that truly do care about us, friends and family that are close. Allow them to be honest. When people get the idea that they're not going to be heard or don't want to be heard, they tend to shut down and then not give us their opinion, sometimes when we really, really, really need it. Another thing we should keep in mind is that we shouldn't be deceived by thinking I am the exception to the rule. This is that old. When I was a teenager, years ago, thinking, I'm 9 feet tall and bulletproof. Not the truth. It's just not the truth. I may think it, I may like it, I may want to be it, but it doesn't change the reality. I'm not the exception to the rule. Bad things happen. Bad things happen to good people. Another thing we need to keep in mind. Another thing I need to be aware of is wishful thinking, thinking that things are all going to fall into place. It's almost magical because I want it. And because I want it, I can often look past the pitfalls, the fact that the odds might be against me, and just push forward. I need to look at things more rationally and be honest with myself. We need to keep in mind that decisions involve options. And I need to consider options, and I need to consider possible and, let's say, likely outcomes and consequences anytime I make a decision. And honestly weighing the good, the bad, the ugly, when I look at those choices. What's that saying? Never make decisions when we're too tired, too angry, too hungry, or too lonely. That seems to apply quite well. Another area we need to be aware of is once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. Many people have fallen prey to that, sometimes simply because there's usually an emotional appeal that occurs when one of these opportunities come along and gets those emotions geared up. And when those emotions get geared up, the logic can be left aside. Um, Another thing that happens often with these lifetime opportunities is greed. You know, human nature, unfortunately, we can succumb to wanting things and wanting them easily. And so often these, let's say, offers appeal to that side of the human persona. So we need to be aware of that because it's that old saying, you know, when things appear too good to be true, they usually are. We also need to be aware of the sensation when we're facing a choice of missing out. You know, I don't want to miss out on this. So again, we can act too quickly, maybe impulsively, not considering the possible consequences and long-term effects. Um, Again, that can be in a situation where the emotional appeal can be very, very strong. And so we don't consider all the options. To make good decisions, we have to take a cold, honest look at ourselves in the mirror. Be honest with ourselves about our past patterns, our past triggers, our possible blind spots when it comes to certain things. And it may have to do with how we deal with money, if we've had a history of struggles financially, how we deal with relationships. Again, if we've faced one, let's say, unhealthy relationship after another. It could do with careers and how I choose careers or how my jobs end. But look for those patterns. And again, the common denominator is always us. We're the one that's always there in these patterns that tend to repeat. So I need to look at what choices I'm making, how to avoid the bad ones, and then how to employ the good ones. To always consider the long-term effects of my choices. If I take that extra moment to think about how's this going to affect me tomorrow, next week, next year, long term, it can slow me down so that I can consider the pros and the cons of whatever decision I'm making and hopefully make the best decision, the best option that I have. Another thing I'll add here is we need to also be careful when making decisions that we don't simply make the easiest decision because it is the easiest. The easiest decision isn't always the right decision. It isn't always the one that's going to pay off the highest rate in the end. It's not always the decision that is fair, equitable, moral. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the right decisions, but they come with a certain price, extra work, sometimes even being rejected by other people. So that's another trap we need to beware of, that the easiest decision isn't always the right one. To sum up, bad decisions, we need to avoid them as best we can by not acting too fast, not acting too slowly, by trying to please others, making decisions when we're angry, making decisions simply on our own, making decisions out of fear, or reacting rather than responding. Good decisions we can make by recognizing our patterns of the past, using the good but trying to avoid the bad, being informed, not engaging in wishful thinking or succumbing to once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, or giving in to that fear of missing out. In conclusion, one point I would leave with you is this. Keep in mind that mistakes are often the best opportunities for learning. And I hope we all learn.